Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? It's me, Paddy from across the shuck, and I usually do these on a Saturday, but today I've done it on a Sunday. And I've been I've been having a lot of contemplation on my channel and where it's going, and we do this all the time. And I go through wee periods where my head gets a bit fumbled, and I then try a different direction. I mightn't enjoy it, but this is the joy about collecting knives. Now, be they slip joint knives, traditional knives, or you know, locking knives. It doesn't matter what variety of knife you decide to join with. It just changes so many times for me, and sometimes I get confused, and sometimes I go off in a direction. I start buying knives that I said I wasn't going to buy 6 months ago, and then after two or three, I think I knew I shouldn't have bought them, and then I move on. I'll maybe sell them, but some of them I'll keep because I really like them. Do you know what I mean? So this is my interpretation of the biggest part of my hobby, which is slip joints. I love slip joints, and not because I'm in Northern Ireland, in the UK. That's not the reason I collect slip joints. It was the reason that sort of kept me from slip joints when I first started, because this was all I was used to as a boy, was slip joints or little belt sheath knives, little Bowie knives, things like that we used to carry into the woods and all with us. But most of the time, 99% of the time, I carried a little pocket knife because it done everything I needed to do. As a young lad, we built forts and things like that. We needed rope, we needed string, so it cut them. Sometimes it would have took half an hour to get to some of the string because our sharpening wasn't great, but it still worked. We didn't. You don't give up. You just do it. So this is my little walkthrough and my explanation of what I perceive knives to be. Now, this can't be wrong because it's my interpretation and it's what keeps me on the straight and narrow. So I just would like to share it with you, see if it makes any sense, because it can get awfully complicated. People can throw these complicated words and terms in when you're just starting to collect knives, and it's baffling because you'd never heard them before. You didn't use them. You just said, have you got a penknife? You didn't say, have you got a penknife with a good steel in it? Have you got a penknife with a bone handle? You just had what you had. So that was a wee bit dramatic there, but it is. I mean, what is a slip joint? Well, here you are. I'm going to show you this. This is a slip joint. And when you say to somebody a slip joint, especially somebody sort of that's, over 40, they're going to look at this and say, nah, it's too modern for me. And, it could well be. And they've every right, we've all rights to see what's modern and what's not. This is a beautiful slip joint. Is it a modern slip joint? You could call it that, but it's just a slip joint. It's beautifully made. The modern bit is a screwed construction. So it's not in the traditional fashion of pin construction, which is another art form. To get that right takes a lot of years of practice. But these are screwed together. It doesn't make it no less of a slip joint. It has a back spring. It opens up. And it doesn't lock. It's just held by that spring. And that's what makes it a slip joint. Beautiful, centered. This is a beautiful piece. Really lovely. And this is a tactile pen. Tactile turn used to do the pen. Tactile pen. This is a tactile knife. Tactile turn used to make the pens, but now they make tactile knives. And this is a beautiful one. This is a bear. Tactile bear. Beautiful in Magna Cut. High-end steel. It's a beautiful, beautiful slip joint. But it's not the sort of slip joints that I am drawn to mostly. And I do have quite a few slip joints that are modern, that are of, that I have in my collection. I love them and they're great to use for specific jobs because you get longevity out of them. That's the biggest thing you get out of a modern slip joint. Is the blade steel is normally better than what it was years ago. But then again, people used to know how to sharpen knives years ago. And another thing I prattle on about is learning how to sharpen knives. It'll be the most, if you're just around and you don't sharpen knives, and even if you can afford to send them out, still learn how to sharpen knives, because if the postal service went down, if something else went down, all your knives are going to go blunt. No, learn how to sharpen. It doesn't take very long. Within 2 weeks of trying, you'll be able to get an edge on a knife. There you are. That's a wide statement. Sometimes it'll only take 2 or 3 days to get that basic of what to do. Go to somebody who knows how to sharpen, get him to teach you. Best thing I've ever done was learn how to sharpen a knife. And I'm no master, but I can sharpen a knife. So other knives that you might have seen, this is a Swiss Army knife, which was, we had the wee small ones when we were younger, and we used to have them. Now, it didn't have key rings, but it would just put the wee small one. But this is a Cadet. When I came around YouTube, everybody said, get a Cadet. It was a great wee knife for bottle opening and things like that. And it's got a lovely blade that's, doesn't last forever at the edge, but it'll last and it'll do everything you want it to do. But when I grew up, this was the standard of knife I had. Now, this one's just the Queen's Jubilee, but it was made by Richard. You can see that sort of faux mother of pearl there. And they made lots of different knives with different pictures on them. Cowboys, Indians, whatever you wanted. There was all sorts of pictures on the front of them. And they attracted the younger people, like me. And you got two blades, which was great. You got a larger blade, but no more, definitely not as big even as the Cadet. But this is the type of knife that I used for most of my childhood and young adulthood. Was just a very simple, basic pen knife. That's all it was. Very simple, very basic. And they're still going today. You can still buy them today. And I mean, I keep this one just basically because the year 1977 was the year I joined the Navy, and I was at the Queen's Silver Jubilee. I was on a beach in Portsmouth watching the drive past, and it was just fantastic. Loved it. So that's where I started. And this is where I'm up to now, where I have modern slip joints that are of absolutely super quality. But most of my collection is not. Most of my collection is in traditional slip joints. And the only things that makes them traditional is that they're made in a way as close to, or in some cases the older ones, they were made in the factories that made them that nearly like an old custom knife. There were a lot of handwork in them, and that's the older knives. And I really adore older knives. And I've thrown. Let me just get one. Like, this is not real old, but it's a Marbles. Before Rough Rider, this is a Marbles, and the Marbles made an absolutely superb knife. The fit and finish in this is just to die for. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. And this beautiful jigged bone in the, I don't know what you call it, the bird footprint pattern. And again, I don't know all the names, and it doesn't really matter to me as long as I know which one it is. If you were to say bird footprint knife, I'd go and get this out because I know that's what it is. And I'm not that worried because it's the knife that's important. Look at that beautiful master spear point blade with that lovely nail nick with a match strike pull. This is a beautiful knife. I bought this new old stock. I don't even know when it was, because sometimes that's just not important to me. It was just a god. I couldn't believe. I've actually got another Marbles here. There's Marbles, which are now, I think they're made by Smoky Mountain, or they own the rights to them anyway. But this is a beautiful knife too. It's a gorgeous knife. But this one costs pennies compared to what you have to pay for this now. But you can see that they're both beautiful knives. I don't even know what the blade steel was in this. No idea. Some sort of stainless steel, I think, on this one. But what a lovely pair of knives. This is sort of mass produced now in China. It doesn't have the same standard of fit and finish. It doesn't have that same standard of bone and the jigging. Everything about it. Both blades are centered down the middle. Just a great knife. An absolutely great knife. So I like the new stuff because it's cheap, and if you want a knife to batter about or just to show, because I think that's an attractive looking knife. I really do. Really think it's attractive. Great action on it. Nothing to complain about. But sort of this would be my passion, is getting the older knives, but getting the new old stock. This just really when I got this, it blew my mind. I didn't realize Marbles being such a good knife back in the day. but they did. And this is it. I say, look at that centering on both blades, right up the hey diddle diddle. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful knife. And as you go through, when I started off, it was marbles and it was Rough Rider. And I remember getting my first case, and this was it. It was given to me by a friend from Liverpool. He sent me this over, and it's the very basic case knife, but what a gift. I thought it was amazing. Beautiful Turkish clip, I'm going to say, because it's a bit upswept there, and a spay blade. Because when I hear, this is probably where my love of spay blades came. I didn't like this clip as much as I liked the spay blade because I could do more with this, and I enjoyed using that, and I loved this knife. Just loved it. Just loved it. But you go on in your collection, and once you start off, and yes, starting off, I believe coming in and starting off with a high-end knife really does nothing for the journey. You know, take time in your slip joint journey if you're just starting, and go back and buy some of the older ones. I mean, there's a Rough Rider. That's an older pattern Rough Rider. It's the Rifleman series. Came in a tin box. You had this gorgeous knife. Look at the fit and finish on that. I mean, these were, you know, not expensive at all. These are the budget. Look at that lovely writing on there. I haven't used this because it's beautiful. And I've got two of them now in the series. I have a canoe in this, and then I have this Coke bottle shaped, and there's the secondary blade. And this was a magazine special order. I just love this. I mean, the detail. This is wood, and you have this beautiful diamond checkering on it, which is just, you know, like the handle of the old guns. Just beautiful. I absolutely adore this knife. And again, cheap knife. But it looks expensive. It does everything the expensive knives will do. Maybe the steel's not as great. And that's the only slight difference, because the steel's on even this is not great compared to modern knives. But again, going back to that thing, if you sharpen, it didn't matter. Once I learned how to sharpen, it didn't matter what knife somebody brought to me, or whatever knife I bought, I was able to sharpen it. And you can go from one extreme to the other in this, and you can jump up the line if you can afford to do that. But I would say don't miss out on these. And when you buy like Rough Riders and things, don't just put them away as part of your collection. Use them and find out what the steel's like. And it's like buying, this was another, the cheaper brands, Arthur Wright, Taylor's Eyewitness do a beautiful cheap brand. This is just beautiful. I think this is stunning. And you know, these are cheap knives to buy. They're work knives. They're made to work. Listen to that lock up on that. Yeah, that's just, this is an older one, by the way. Look at that clip point. Is that not just absolutely adorable? You have this bulbous end on here, which just fits your hand beautifully. I mean, your fingers are secure. It feels comfortable in the hand. You could work all day, and you can with this knife. You might have to sharpen it. And again, I'll probably come back to that. You know, this little knife will put an edge back, or this little knife, this little sharpener will put an edge back in any of these, as long as you don't leave it till it goes blunt. Because then that hasn't got the strength for some of the higher steels like this up here in Magna Cut and all. So sharpening always comes back into knife collecting. You know, a lot of companies now send out knives. I don't understand it. They send out knives that don't cut. They're just not sharp enough. And I always think if you're buying a knife is a sharp object. It should come sharp. It really, really should. It shouldn't be blunt, but they do. So again, learning how to sharpen, your knife is useful straight away instead of sitting waiting until you get somebody else to sharpen it for you. Look at that, centering that. These are, you know, this is under a 40-pound knife. Yeah, there's some little flaws in it. There's a bit of dip there in the spring, but it's not affecting the knife whatsoever. And I think that's what you find a lot with the older and more basic knives. People didn't care too much if there was a bit of a gap in it. People didn't care if there was slight imperfections with a pin sticking up. They just bought the knife to work, and as long as it opened and closed and done its job, the back spring worked to keep the knife open and closed, that was all they wanted in a knife. But we as YouTubers and people who watch YouTube tend to be people who have got knives and have gone through this process. They mightn't have started channels, but they've gone, and me and them and you are the people that buy the more expensive knives because you want to expand on what you got. It's like you might start driving with a little Mini and you end up with a Mercedes, and there's cars in between. Collecting is exactly the same as that. You can start anywhere along that line depending on your price bracket, and then you usually move up. I'm sort of doing nearly the opposite. I'm moving back down to try and get the older knives that are maybe not perfect anymore, but just the history that goes with them is amazing, and it makes me feel good. And I've got to say, I mean, some of the companies about at the minute that are putting out knives. In fact, here, let's just say this. My favourite brand has always been GEC. And it still probably is, hanging on by its teeth. But this was my first GEC, and somebody linked me up with a man in America. I didn't know you could buy them over here. I didn't know there was different Facebook groups and all. I had no idea. None whatsoever. I'm computer illiterate, and I'm still computer illiterate after 7 years. But this was my first GEC. How beautiful a start. Look at that Cranby jig bone. This is the number 78 pattern. This is just a stunning knife. Absolutely stunning. I love everything about it. Full 4-finger grip. Lovely blade. I love a spear point. It just does everything. So this tonight, and this has been black cleaned off, I don't know how many times. It's one of my favourite users. Now, when I bought it, the man who sold it to me told me it was off like this, showed me pictures, so I knew what I was buying. Still had to pay £100 then, and that was, a few years ago. Still had to pay £100 for it, but it's never moved from that spot. So I've never had to worry about it scraping on the side. It hasn't moved, and I have used it, and it has not moved. And this knife, again, is still one of my favourite knives because user-wise, I love a spear point because it gives you a point, it gives you a belly, and it gives you a bit of flat on the blade. And that's the three things that I love on a blade. Now, is that the only sort of blades I like? Absolutely not. I like plenty more. Looks-wise, I love a clip point. And I mean, this is when you start to go up and you get something like a Taylor's Eyewitness made by Lee White. This is expensive. You're moving up in that market. But you get the most beautiful finish on a blade. Look at that. It is mirror polished, which just adds another dimension to a knife. Look at that beautiful mirror polish. There's the camera. It is just stunning. Lee White makes a beautiful knife. You can get the file work in the back. So, as you move up, you can go to different companies and get their high-end knives. And this is a high-end. I mean, these are about 170 to buy. This one's in Desert Ironwood, which is just glorious. Look at that there. Actually, the front of it's looking really dark in this, but it has darkened up over time, to be honest with you, because it wasn't as dark as this when I got it. But even carrying it, and I don't use it that much. I mean, I would cut small things with it, but it is you can't actually see how deep the grain is in that. It is just stunning, and with a bit of file work, makes it a wee bit special. Beautiful knife. Listen to that snap, and again up the middle. Lee White makes a beautiful knife, and I love having his knives in there. But at the minute, you have to be living under a rock to not have heard of Rosecraft. So Rosecraft are making they're making a modern traditional knife. They're maybe using more machinery than what we consider would be traditionally made, more of that hand, but they're still doing hand finishing. It's made in China, which puts a lot of people off. Silly, because you're missing out on some beautiful knives. And I'm not saying you have to buy all Chinese. I buy British and USA made knives mostly. German is another company I like, or country I like. That I collect a lot of German knives as well. But I just pick and choose. I buy from people that make a product that I like, and it doesn't matter where it is. That's where I buy it. But I try to stick to my own country as much now, more than ever. I'm buying from my own country. Look, there's a beautiful knife here. This is a IXL George Wolstenholme, but this is made now. This is a modern interpretation of what they do. It is beautiful. To me, this is a traditional knife. It's a traditional pattern. It's put together with pins. This is more handmade in this than most other slip joints you're going to see down there. And look at that. Beautiful spear point on it. But that scale is just beautiful. That's different on both sides. But it is just, this on the show side is amazing. What a lovely knife. This is an expensive one again, much like the Taylor's Eyewitness. And I do like now getting the more expensive ones that are made now, but they're made in a similar fashion to what the traditional knives were made years ago. I keep going back to this one. This is an older marbles. It's not that old. I've got lots older than it. But just finding these older knives that are made and put away. Somebody buys them, puts them away, and then when they sell them, it's called new old stock. It's a brand new knife, hadn't been used, well looked after, it's been oiled, looked at, nothing. It's just perfect. And that's when you get little bargains like this, my just heart leaps when you get somebody saying new old stock, because I've been very lucky and I've got a good collection of new old stock knives, which I love. But I was saying about Rosecraft, you really have been living under a rock if you got it. This is their latest one. This is in stag. It's a gunstock pattern. You can see that shape of the gunstock. And it has a lovely slim clip point on it. Look at that. How beautiful is that? Look at it. It's just both sides matched well. Beautiful bit of stag on there. Fits in your hand like a glove, and having that sort of the rough texture on there, it just holds beautifully. A stunning knife. About 60 quid. Do you know what I mean? Look at it. Right up the centre. That is special to get a knife in that price range with stag on it, which looks as beautiful as this. There's nobody else really doing it, in my books, to the standard that they're doing. Here's another one that they've not long. This is a Nullichucky Jack. This is a big knife. I mean, this is as big as the marbles here. And I'll just bring them out because they both have the same sort of blades. Look at that. Look at that. You can see the similarities because it's the blade shape is the same, but the Nullichucky is just a little bit bigger, probably a quarter of an inch longer than the marbles, but they're two big knives. I mean, I have a large hand and I am getting a full spread out grip. I don't even need to go up here. I can do if I want to, and that's where I'll always go anyway. But it's that, I have a larger hand, so I can spread out and hold there, and I've got the whole knife in my hand. And I get a beautiful, it's a working knife in D2 steel. Whereas a lot of the older knives would have had carbon steels. Not even as high as the 1095 that GEC use. They would have used carbon steels that were inferior to that. So where am I now? German. I said about German. I got some beautiful German knives. This is a Boker. This is a Boker club knife. Again, these are quite expensive once you get up that range. Once you get away from the budget range and you get up past once you get up past these Rosecraft knives, you really have to jump now, because between, under £100, there's nobody in my book that is making as good a knife with the materials, with the fit and finish. The knives come like a razor blade. Every one that I've had, and I've got about 15 there, or whatever I've got or had of them, about 15. But this is another company that makes a stupendous knife. This is one of my most comfortable knives in hand. I love this Boker. Again, it's that spear point. It just gives it so much depth. And, as a user, the spear point is definitely the blade for me. For my life, because I don't have anything particular that I do a lot of. I just do a lot of different things. So the spear point covers all that. And then get into, there's case knives. I started with this, which was a lovely knife. Then I had a couple of old bangers that came through, put me off. But then I went back to case again, and I managed to get this beautiful Tony Bowes made sow belly. And this is the single bladed sow belly. You can see Tony Bowes' signature on there. But even it has got imperfections. You know, there's a bit of gapping on it. But it is a beautiful knife in ebony. Yeah, it is ebony. Beautiful knife in ebony. I love it. Love this knife. Very, very comfortable again. And I have a lot to say. I love comfortable knives with handle shapes that are not too drastic, too out of the way. And this is beautiful. Beautiful. So, again, going to go back to a lot of things that when you're collecting, you do find you'll get patterns that you like that really stand out. But I still like to try other patterns. And for instance, there's a Jack Wolf knife, this is not a traditional knife. It's a modern interpretation of one, but it's titanium, all one piece on the bolster and the liners. It has a really high blade steel that will outlast most of the knives on this table by far. It is S90V steel. It has a beautiful, unusual blade shape, which I love. The handle is a strange shape, but put it in hand, and it has the marbles, what the rose shaft. It is beautiful. This is a much more expensive knife because you're paying for the steels and you're paying for the titanium, but you also get the most beautiful walk and talk, which is another thing people talk about. And all it is the opening and closing of a knife. That's all it is, the sound it makes. I mean, I'm really into the auditory sounds of knives. There's another German one here. I forgot I had this here. Look at this beautiful knife. This is the Fighting Bulldogs. Look at that. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, 1995 this was made. Beautiful. In buffalo horn, by the looks of it to me. You have the droopy danglers. There we go. Once you see them, you can't take it away. And this is a beautiful Stockman. Beautifully made in Solingen in Germany. Cam tang, but listen to that. It's beautiful. And it's made absolutely stunningly well by Boker. They really do. Not Boker. This is Bulldog brand, isn't it? Isn't it? Tell me. Fighting Bulldogs, yeah. No, Fighting Rooster. Fighting Rooster Solingen. You think I would know all this stuff, wouldn't you? And then, I mean, another thing that I like doing is collecting custom knives, but you don't have to go to the highest end of the market to get a custom knives. I mean, you can get a custom knife from £140. You just have to get the custom knife from the right place. And I believe somebody like Ashley Harrison, it's incredibly difficult to run his books. And I'm not going to make any apologies for that. He's a one-man job, has a full-time job running a factory, a knife-making factory, and then makes knives on his, weekends and evenings. How he keeps up with what he does, I have no idea, but he does. And I mean, this was the first custom I got made from Ashley. I told him what I wanted, but I didn't give him any sort of pattern or shape. I said, just make me that knife. I want a sheep's foot blade, a big, sturdy working knife. And this is what came back with. This beautiful blue bone. And there's other colours starting to come down in through, whether it's the metal of the liners, but it's coming through. There's nearly like a wee reddy coming through. This knife is just a workhorse. It is a beautiful knife. Stunning knife. And you can see the knives that I work with there. I like a bit of patina. Not something that really, I don't give a thought to make a nice patina, but if a knife goes near hot stuff, it goes near it, if that's what it's doing. And if I carry the knife a lot, you'll find out that it'll always hit something hot somewhere along the line. But I quite like it. And this is an Ashley Harrison custom, my first one. And these were under £100 when I bought them. Or when Ashley sold it to me. It was under 100, but the prices of everything, like life, they just go up. They just go up. But I mean, other small custom makers over here in the UK, and you'll have them in America. You just have to find them. Because I had no idea when I started. This is Stephen Cocker, another beautiful knife. You've seen this lots of times, and there's a reason why you see it lots of time. One, it is beautiful. It is handmade. The jigging on this wood, yep, this is wood, tight green, and you would swear it was bone except for the weight of the knife. And it is beautifully jigged. He does all his own jigging, and he's a master at it. And he makes a damn good knife too. Beautiful knife, highly polished again. Beautiful cam tang. Listen to that snap. That's what I like about British knives. More than anything is the walk and talk on them. I mean, some people, here's an old Shatton Morgan, again, new old stock. This is a stunning piece of work. This is when Queen owned Shatton Morgan. Shatton Morgan was the high-end part of Queen. And look at that beautifully fitted shield, which is not the case always. And this bone, this burnt orange sort of bone, is just, honestly, it's just, I could sit and look at it all day. It is beautiful. And again, a sheep's foot. You'll find it's one of the blades I like a lot. Not got a very strong pull, but it doesn't need to have. You know, you've got a tang up here. And people get awful frightened. If you get your finger up in this tang, that isn't going anywhere. Just don't take your finger off the tang. Keep it there. Well, no matter what you're doing. And if you accidentally nudge it, I don't know how you would do it, but keep your finger there. And this is where you should be putting pressure on the knife here, not the back here. You're just hanging on there. You're just covering your hand and making it feel comfortable. This is where I put the pressure here. This is just a hold. And this can't close on you when you've got a tang on it like that. Do you know what I mean? Beautiful knife. It's got Shatton Morgan on it. Sorry, this is only one of 100, but it's just a stunning knife. Absolutely stunning. And this is the old-fashioned type. It still has a nice walk and talk. Some of the others I'm going to talk to. And yeah, the modern knives, like the Jack Wolves, that are the top of the tree at the minute for production knives for me. This is, again, a modern interpretation of a traditional pattern. They never have made any distinction. This is pinned together. You can take it apart. How beautiful is that? And look at that clip point. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The grind lines are stunning on it. This is kieranite. It's the sort of stuff that I put with countertops in kitchens. You would have kieranite. But look at that on the knife. And the depth and the movement on that there. Not frightened to have a go at adding different things. And listen to the walk and talk. All Jack Wolves have a walk and talk that just makes you swoon. So, most of the traditional knives, the old traditional knives, were made of 3 materials. Well, probably a little bit more than 3, but the most used would have been bone, wood, and stag. Now, you'd have got pearl, you'd have got all sorts of different sort of fancy things, but this would have been the high end. Your bone, the wood was the easiest to come by and the cheapest they could put. So they put it on from cheap knives like this to this. This is walnut on an expensive Ashley Harrison custom. This one is bone that has just been left raw and then dyed. It has some beautiful, beautiful lines on it, the GEC, and I love the bolster with something on them. But this Ashley Harrison, I don't know whether my wrists, I had a fall, as you say. Oh, I can get it, yeah. My right hand's getting stronger. This is an Ashley Harrison custom. Again, look at that blade and the swedge on it. This is what gets me excited more than anything else, is when a craftsman puts his hand on something and actually makes something that's absolutely beautiful. Listen to that. That would take your arm off, never mind your finger. But again, there's one from, this looks every bit as expensive and nice as these do. It's got D2 steel in it. Fantastic steel, above what most of the old traditionals would be, if that was the thing that you would like, a wee bit more longevity. Maybe you're not a great sharpener, maybe the D2 is the way to go. But there's plenty of ways to go, and I've gone through a stack of different knives there. But I just want to say, you know, if you're thinking of getting started in the slip joints, because there's a big come back to slip joints again, especially the older models as well. They're becoming very popular, but also the modern slip joints have got a reckoning now. But my advice to you, if you want to get the most out of it, for me, it was starting at the very beginning, getting the cheaper knives, the Rough Riders, find out a pattern that you loved. I didn't find out the blade pattern I liked for a long while. I always liked the look of a clip, but I didn't realize that the basic spear point is much more efficient at doing more jobs. So, I mean, there's a reason why your sack knives have a spear point on them. It's dead simple. It's the most efficient at doing more jobs than any other blade shape. That's more my opinion than anybody else's, to be honest with you. But yeah, I have lots of different blade shapes, and I like them all, and I use them for different things. God, I think I've talked about every knife there. That's amazing. There we go. And it's only been 35 minutes. Sorry, but I just like that. Sometimes I just like this for people coming around. I mean, this knife is beautiful. The cheaper end. This knife is absolutely beautiful. It's bone. It's this is beautiful. So is this. You're not going to be embarrassed carrying any of them. So you got cheap to the next stage up. And then you've got something like, where is that? We got a case in bone. Where's my case? No, I forgot. This is in wood. So there's a beautiful case knife, which is, a higher end case knife, but it is a beautiful knife. And then you can go up then, just up the tree to more bone from, oh, gosh, sorry. Just had an old man jiggle. So you can get more bone. There's an Ashley one that's been dyed bone. All bone, beautiful knives. And you can head on up to the different ones like, the most expensive ones that I've got is my Jack Wolf knives, which are beautiful and modern materials. Stag, you don't have to spend expensive money on Stag because it's normally the most expensive cover on most traditional knives. But you can pick them up for 60 odd quid from Rosecraft, which I highly recommend. Highly recommend. So yes, there's lots there to go through, but starting low and work your way up. Buy second hand until you're sure of what you actually want. Buy second hand, because you could end up like me. I'm not sure what I actually want most of the time. I buy by my eyes. If I see something that comes up and I like the look of it, I'll buy it. I'll buy it just so that I can say. I mean, I bought this about 2 weeks ago. A modern knife that's completely different than anything you're going to see on the table. It's a big modern knife. It's got a button lock. It is beautiful. It's made by Protec in conjunction with Ferrum Forge. It's their design. It is one of the most efficient big knives I've ever had. It's beautiful. But I'll probably not use that very much because I have all these. But it looked beautiful. It was something that tickled my fancy. And it's exactly the same with this. I can change at the drop of a hat. And I love older knives, and I'll maybe next Sunday, I'll maybe do the older knives that I've got and put them on the table and show you the older knives and why I like them. Maybe this is a complete jumble of hodgepodge, but sometimes just nice to throw knives on the table and just talk about them and the joy I have in having them. So I hope it made sense to some people, and if it just gave you a little bit of eye candy to look at, that's good enough for me. Give me eye candy. I enjoy looking at mine. Take care. Bye-bye now.